All right, my friend, here we go.
Yep.
This was one you actually just, you had seen. I missed this and you sent it my way, so I like it. This is from Omar D. And he says, love the podcast. It's especially great to listen to when suffering in the hot garage every morning. Fantastic. My garage is freezing right now.
I was going to say, I mean, hence the toque here. I'm starting to go into winter mode here.
I was going to say, okay, I wanted to ask a question regarding rest days. How would you convince somebody not to work out? Which is interesting, right? Because many people have to be convinced to work out. I'm a full-time teacher, often find myself able to function better and get my day started when I work out in the morning. There's something about moving around, it changes my mood, gets me mentally prepared to take on the day. Because of this, I often have trouble taking days off, even though I know they are absolutely paramount. It's even an issue I've seen in the few gyms I've been a part of as well. So I ask, how do you explain to your members or convey to them how important off days are? Omar, thank you. Great question. All right. So what's funny is I adore my rest days. I mean, I cherish them. Tomorrow, we're recording this on a Wednesday. Tomorrow is a Thursday. You never have to twist my arm not to work out, but I think I am the oddball because I know a lot of people, you've got to almost lock the door to the gym and say, you've had enough, go home. So have you dealt with this? How would you convince somebody not to work out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the first thing that comes to mind is it's kind of an ages and stages thing as far as how you're working out and when you're working out. And I think that, to your point earlier, a lot of people, when you first get going, one of two things is going to happen. It's going to be kind of an uphill battle to get you in the gym and make that habit a little bit more permanent. Or you're going to go so far off the rails that it's just like, whoa, all right, we're going to have to pump the brakes a little bit. There doesn't seem to be a lot of middle ground. But for many of us, I think, that have been part of this lifestyle for a long time, you do start to really, either through acceptance that it is a really good thing for you, or just through the process of getting beat up a little bit and saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe I held my hand a little bit too close to the flame. You start to recognize that day really is valuable. Now, in Omar's case, it's kind of interesting because he was saying that he notices that he's got the benefits like mental clarity, feeling prepped for the day,
kind of
that sort of thing. Exactly, that comes along with it. And so just having a little bit more time to sleep in doesn't sound like that's really going to serve him. So I think we have a bit of a unique situation here as far as, the average person. It's like, yeah, you need time to recover so that you can come back and act with intensity in those days that you're in the gym. If you never have that day off, chances are you're going to start to slowly decrease the emphasis on intensity and effort that you bring to each session. So taking a little time off makes a lot of sense. But in his case, I think this is something slightly different. So
yeah,
I think we have to take a slightly different approach.
Yes, for sure. Because the simple convincing somebody not to work out, I would just do what you said. I would explain how, and give them a very elevator pitch version of what CrossFit is, why the methodology works, why intensity is your friend, how intensity helps drive results. And if you are working out with any meaningful degree of intensity, your body needs some rest and recovery, because for most of us that aren't cyborgs, you just can't burn it down every single day. So that rest is critical, or you're never going to be able to bring the intensity. And so that gets into the whole more is not better. If you're just flogging yourself every day because you feel like you've got to get into work it every day and you just start to decline, you're not doing yourself any benefit there. So more is not better. Rest is your friend. It helps drive intensity. That helps drive results. But and that's for the client that's coming in too much, right? Or the person working on their garage gym. But like you said, in Omar's case, maybe there's a happy little middle ground there, because unquestionably, you get up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee. If you move your body around, you probably do start to wake up, kick on the old central nervous system, feel a little bit more sharp. The mental acuity comes in. And I do believe you probably do have a better day for sure. So maybe in Omar's case, depending upon how many days a week you want to do this, you've got workouts, you've got full recovery, you've got active recovery. But I guess my point is, maybe Omar could go into the gym and on a couple of those days, yes, move your body around, but you don't have to just drop a nuclear bomb on what's going on right there. It doesn't have to be Fran, right? I mean, maybe you go in, you do some light rowing, some walking lunges, a couple push-ups, some pass-throughs with a PVC pipe, or some ring rows, or just some, not like pulling heavy deads or something like that. And those sort of just lighter movement days a couple times a week. If he's absolutely bent on I'm going in every day, if I can't change, I'd love to change your mind from that, but if I'm going to assume that I can't, well, then I'd love to have a couple of those days just not fall into the category of workouts, but just movements where you can trick yourself into feeling good for the rest of the day.
Well, I've got kind of three big buckets too, and I agree with everything that you just said. And thinking about this, I really do like the element of, number one, I kind of have this habit that I get into the rhythm of, and that sort of thing can become routine. So that's great. I think that's a really positive habit to build. So, I do sympathize with not trying to break that, or maybe the fear that if you start taking days here and there, that those days here and there turn into the norm more than
slippery slope.
Exactly. So I get that. But I kind of have three categories of exactly what you said, movement days that I wouldn't necessarily chalk up to full-blown workouts. So the first would be just straight up some very easy-o, for lack of a better term, cardio. You get in the gym, maybe you jump rope for 20 minutes, call it a day, and I'm not talking 20 minutes of double unders. I'm talking basic skills done at a pretty moderate to low intensity. Well, same approach could be taken on, insert your favorite kind of monostructural movement. Could be rowing, could be biking, could just be, hey, get up and take a brisk stroll around the block a few times. That could be just enough there too. Get the blood pumping, keeps your habit, but doesn't beat you up further. So those are all great options. So that's category one. Category two is one that personally, it is the best that I ever feel when I get into the habit of doing this on the regular. And that is spending 20 to 30 minutes doing a full joint rotation and dynamic stretching session first thing out of bed. So get up, just go through all the major joints in the body, move them through a full range of motion gently, start working through some of your favorite dynamic stretches. And again, you're not trying to do the splits in midair. This isn't a Chuck Norris double gusseted head kick here, but starting to move your joints through a dynamic range of motion progressively. And again, you kind of have that same benefit. Move the body around, get the brain going, get the blood pumping, and you're going to feel pretty good afterwards. And it's not going to beat you up. So that's category two. And then my third category, which is my favorite, is to just pick a couple skills ahead of time. Don't do it on the fly because it's easy to turn it into a workout. But pick a couple skills ahead of time. And maybe you do this at the beginning of the week. So you plot out those days that are going to be off days. And you say, okay, Thursday morning, it's going to be maybe handstand practice. And so you do all the different type of prep that goes into, wrist and elbow and shoulder kind of stretching and preparation around that. And then you spend some time accumulating handstands and working on that skill, or whatever that skill happens to be. I think there's a whole host of things that can be done at a relatively low intensity that really speak to those bottom four attributes in the 10 general physical skills, balance, agility, coordination, accuracy. And sometimes it's great to see those things not under a lot of intensity. And I'll give you a recent example. I recently had the good fortune to meet up with a guy named Jim Klopman, who he has this whole line of balance products based on like slacklining, basically, called the Slack Bow. Pretty cool stuff. And I spent an hour with him, and he kind of put me through the paces of some of his balance stuff. And that's kind of off the beaten path for what I would have done that day. But after that hour, I wasn't beat up as far as a workout, but I was definitely mentally stimulated. I was in a great mood. And I was like, man, that was, if nothing else, it was a lot of fun to engage with something like that that's a little different and what I was.
I bet that fired up the old neurological components.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was fun and it was different. And, again, it checked the box for the day. I did something physical, but it certainly didn't take a lot out of me. And I felt ready to go the next day. So that's a great example of something that, I was working, quote unquote, because it was new and it was challenging and all of these
Mm-hmm.
things, but it wasn't so physically taxing that, it put me further behind on my recovery.
And depending upon what Omar's workout schedule is, it's like based upon what he wrote here, it does sound like he's in there every day to kick the morning off. That's what I'm getting. It sounds like,
Yeah.
he doesn't work 7 days a week, I'm sure, if he's a teacher, so the weekends are off. But it sounds like he heads in there every day just because it starts his day better.
Yep.
So what I would encourage him to do is maybe experiment with, if you're going to go in there 7 days, just schedule 2 as quote unquote easy days or rest days or skill days, like basically what you just said. But I would schedule them, just because if you don't,
agreed.
it just might be easy it's another workout that you want to hit today. It's another work. But if like I take Thursdays and Sundays off. So to use that as an example, if you know that Thursdays and Sundays are going to be the sort of days that you just mentioned, or I'm just going to warm up and do a nice stretch session, do the Bergner warm up, whatever it happens to be, that'd be great. And, getting this back to potentially a bit of programming and stuff that we mentioned at the beginning, because by the time this posts, we did a couple episodes on programming, and we've certainly spoken about how intensity is key. But I think people nod along politely when they hear that, but don't really understand how much that really is a critical element of what makes CrossFit so unique. That, along with functional movements, which help drive intensity and variance and all that good stuff. But most of us, now I don't know if I want to speak for most of us, but everyone that I know and hung up with and came up with through CrossFit, that before we did CrossFit, we were doing classic bodybuilding style body part splits, that kind of stuff, which was generally speaking machine-based and low intensity. And then we started doing CrossFit with functional movements and high intensity, and just got this wave of gains and strength and all the stuff that we didn't know. And yes, the movements were key, but that intensity piece is monumental. So if you are doing something to yourself, if you want to improve yourself physically, but you're not giving yourself the opportunity to express some intensity on a regular basis, I think you're leaving a lot of fitness on the table. And to tie this into Omar's thing, and maybe anyone's still interested in programming, making a hard workout to do every day, day after day, that's not tough. Doesn't really take any thought or sophistication. And quite frankly, it's not a smart long-term play. Modulating things, loadings, reps, and intensity to keep the athlete not too beat up, stress the system just enough, moving forward, feeling good. We're not aiming to destroy everybody every day.
Yes.
And to drive this home, so we just got back from a fun time with the Rogue Invitational. And I was, one of the individuals that I do some commentating with, his name is Lawrence Chalet. He's a strong man. I love talking to him because he's just from a different world than CrossFitters, right? I mean, all about just lifting crazy things. And I don't know if he's quasi-retired now. He's a master, but he's won England's strongest man, Britain's strongest man, Europe's strongest man. He's strong. and he said when he was like at his peak of trying to win all these titles and lift all these crazy loads, he never trained more than 4 times a week. That's almost half the days off when you think about it. It's almost 50% of the time you're training and 50% you're not training to be the best at the world in these power strongman events. And I found that it both made sense to me and it took me aback at the same time. And I think that just is related to the fact of, and the next sentence that rolled out of his mouth, and I was like, oh, no kidding, only 4 times. I wouldn't have guessed that. And he's like, well, yeah. It's like, the sessions were hard, so I needed the rest. And I was like, well, of course, it makes a lot of sense. So that's in there. And before I pass the ball back to you, just for giggles, I have to tell you, I was chatting with him, and of course I had to pick his brain. It's like, were you this, were you that? It's like, what was your 1 rep max back squat? And he's like, I never really was that good at the 1 rep and never trained it that much. And I was like, oh, okay, well, do you have any squat numbers you could throw at me? He's like, I think the best I did was like 550 for 20.
Oh, and just a casual 550 for 20. Yeah, no problem. But I mean that
4 times a week.
4 times a week. But that really does speak to it. And I think that, I'm always a big picture person. So I like to come back to kind of the broad philosophy of what are you trying to accomplish? And at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I in the gym every day? In Omar's case, it sounds like he's answered that question. He likes the mental benefits. He likes the way it preps him for his day. That's awesome. That doesn't need to mean that you burn it down every single day. That seems pretty cut and dry from where I'm standing. For many of us, I think we go through a period of time where you start training, you fall in love with it, you want to train more, but you reach a point where you have to ask yourself, am I training more so that I can train more, or am I actually gaining the fitness that is going to extend beyond the four walls of the gym and I can apply in other ways in a meaningful expression? Is that still happening, or am I just training to build up tolerance for more training? And that might be fine if that's what you're really fired up to do. But for many of us, once you make that realization that, oh, maybe I am just training to be able to tolerate more training, and you look at the other things that you have going on in your life, and you're like, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not interested in, dedicating my life to only this. I have other things going on. That trade-off doesn't seem to be as valuable. And so I think that's something that we all have to kind of contend with at some point in our training lives. Some of us more than others. So just kind of food for thought there. Like what are you training for? And is the training that you're doing serving that purpose, or just creating an opportunity to tolerate more training?
And
just a question, Pat.
Right, for sure. And I think you gave those 3 buckets that you had for Omar. I think those are great. I think he should implement those a couple times a week, like I said, maybe on a Thursday and a Sunday. And I'll say, just for everybody at home, one of the big things, we're very much into longevity, right? Like if you're still working out next month, that's cool. But I'd rather have you working out 5 years from now or a decade from now. And, a lot of what we try to cover in this podcast is, we've had the opportunity to learn a lot, to talk to a lot of people who are smarter than us, glean some knowledge from them. And we've done a lot of dumb things. And we try to take all of those and help them, roll them into something and give them to people. And so, after starting to do CrossFit in 2005 and now it's 2022, like it's been a long time, and I've done a lot of dumb things. But for the last however many years that I finally found the groove that I think like works well, and it's long term and it's good for me physically and mentally and all that stuff. It's 5 workouts a day. It's Thursday and Sunday are rest days.
Week?
What did I say?
5 a day.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 5 a day. 5 workouts.
I love it. We talk a good game about a reasonable amount of volume, and Pat just comes hard with 5 a day.
You don't get this physique with just 1 workout a day.
That's right.
5 workouts a week. Thank you. Thursday and Sunday off. One of those workouts is always a heavy day. And out of those 5 workouts that I do, okay, so one's a heavy day, that leaves 4 mixed modality, let's say on a regular basis. I only go quote unquote like hard on 2 out of those. So I'm doing 5 workouts a week. Only 2 I really go hard. So for the math aficionados at home, it's only 40% of my workouts. So most of the time I'm not burning it down. But that allows me to drop the hammer and hit the gas on those days. And then once a week, I do a workout not for time. Like I just go into the gym. I plan out which day that's going to be. And it's maybe something like Omar's talking about, where I don't worry about the clock. I don't beat myself up. If I want to stop and get some extra chalk or hit the next song on my phone or whatever it happens to be, I'm not worried. The clock continues to tick and it's all good. And I would have laughed at that a decade ago. And now it is one of the things that I think is helping me work out week after week, month after month, year after year. So all these different things, Omar, you can do some of them, you can do none of them, you can try them, but a little bit of experimentation, I think, will treat you well. And you can find a nice little battle rhythm that works for your life, ideally doesn't beat you up, lets you hit some workouts hard, lets you take your foot off the gas every now and then, and keeps you feeling good for your day. So I think it's possible.
I think so too. And I just want to stop and just kind of explore one of the things you said around scripting these days and their level of intensity. It sounds like you've got it pretty mapped out as far as, okay, for the week, let's say Monday is going to be my hit it hard, burn it down kind of day. I'm coming off a rest day. So, I should be feeling fresh and ready to go. maybe Tuesday's the lifting day, Wednesday is going to be lower intensity because you just had 2 pretty serious days behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday's an off day, maybe Friday's the hit it hard day again, and then Saturday catch as catch can. Sunday off, something like that. The point isn't that you maintain that specific schedule. The point is that if there is a schedule, it gives you the mental freedom to enter into that session without a lot of stress. Because I think that's another thing that when you fall into, you fall in love with the CrossFit method and you fall in love with this intensity, sometimes if you come in and you decide in the moment, okay, today's not the day to burn it down, there's a little gremlin in the back of your mind that says, yeah, but you should be doing this harder. You should be really going for it. And if you've got that mapped out ahead of time, it's easier to say to that little voice, hey, you know what? No, this is all part of the plan. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to. And it doesn't spiral into something beyond what it needs to be. So that's my only point there is, hey, if you can do that, I think there's a ton of mental flexibility that comes with it. If you can kind of map that out and just get ahead of it.
And here's something, maybe it's related, maybe it's not related. It's about working out, but it's about making some decisions if you feel they're appropriate for wherever you are in your fitness journey. So then you don't walk around like a truck hits you every day of your life, and then you can bring intensity in other days. So today, the workout that is on my agenda is McGee. Very well-known CrossFit hero workout. If anyone's unfamiliar with it, it's a 30-minute AMRAP. So that in and of itself, it gets people's attention. It's 5 deadlifts. Is it push-ups or box jumps next? 5 deadlifts.
Ooh,
I want to say I might get this a little wrong, so pardon me. 5 deadlifts, 9 box jumps, 11 push-ups, something like that. But the key thing there is you get deadlifts and box jumps. There's a lot of interference, and the deadlift is 275 pounds for the guys. 5 reps. It's a 30-minute AMRAP. So if you do the math, you can
be seeing that barbell a lot.
Yes. And so it's, I can hold 2 minutes per round on that workout. That'd get me 15 reps. That's going to get me 75 deadlifts at 275 pounds. I'm here to tell you, I am not going to do that, because if I do 75 deads at 275 pounds, it's going to change my next 4 days of my life in a way that I don't want it to. So the last couple of times that I've done McGee, when I hit 10 rounds, it doesn't matter what the clock is, I stop. And for me, McGee's done for the day. I pulled 50 deads at 275. I don't know what in the world I'm going to need more just walking around the grocery store later today than 50 deads at 275. I'm going to be just fine. But I've learned that from overdoing it. I've learned that from, you gotta get some reps under your belt. So and that's a hero workout, right? So some people in CrossFit might consider that heresy, that you're going to modify or not totally try to just run into a wall because it's a hero workout. Like, I get it. I'm a veteran. Like, I get all that stuff. And in my mind, no matter what it is, you should never feel bad making a good decision for your long-term health and fitness and your back, knees, and shoulders. That should be the number one overriding factor. Make a smart decision. Don't let anything else cloud that judgment. And so I would just kind of toss that into the mix as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So there you go, Omar. If you're feeling like you got to get it in there, hey, some low intensity kind of monostructural work, some sort of progressive dynamic range of motion flexibility work, or some sort of skill work. Those will fit the bill for the day. Script them out. Make sure that you've got them on the books ahead of time so they don't spiral into just another session. And good luck. I mean, I think that's a pretty good solution for somebody who just wants to keep that routine going. Yep. No fault for that. I think that's a really positive thing.
100%. So as always, we appreciate the question. It drives a lot of the content that Adrian and I get to chat about. We read the comments and we share them back and forth. We talk about them on the show. So if you've got ideas, topics, even if you're listening to this in an audio format, obviously we appreciate that. But go to the btwb YouTube channel, find the show, post your thoughts or future topics under the comments, and we'll read them for sure. And oh, by the way, we have some really cool cycles available. If anybody wants to check them out, you can go to programs.btwb.com/VNR. And it's a great way to support the show. We don't have any sponsors, so we can keep telling you guys the truth. But if you want to support the show, it's a great way to do it. So For Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.